Hi, Shalom friends. They tell a story about a poor farmer. His name was Shlomo. And this Shlomo worked quite hard, and he had everything that a farm has, a couple of acres and some farm animals. And he worked very hard from day to night and thanked God for whatever he had. One time he noticed that getting out of bed was a little bit more difficult than usual, and he just put it down to fatigue. But as the days passed, he began to realize he's getting weaker and weaker, and he had no reason to know of why is he feeling weaker. Well, he couldn't afford a specialist, and he was really quite anxious because if he could not put in a full day's work in the farm, his parnosa, his livelihood, would suffer. So he decided to consult with the wise man of the village, who was a Torah scholar, and he says, "What should I do, Rebbe? I'm a farmer and I'm feeling very weak, and I know God doesn't play dice with the universe, so to speak. There's a reason for everything, but I don't know. How am I going to get back my strength?" And the rabbi says, "You're right. Everything happens for a reason. But there are times when even if there's a reason for being fatigued, even if perhaps in the scales of judgment you're not worthy of your usual vigor, sometimes there's a way to get back in God's good graces." "Oh, what do you got to do, Rebbe?" He says, "Well, what you have to do is something which is, in a sense, breaking your nature. When you will go out of your boundaries, you will then be able to say to God, 'Look, God, I did something out of my boundaries for you. Can't you break my judgment, go out of the boundaries of judgment and give me kindness?'" Well, it sounded Kabbalistic, but there was something that he grasped onto, and he said, "I will really think about this." He comes home thinking, what can he give God? He would like to say that he would give God hours of Torah study, but he certainly was not capable of adding to Torah study. He barely was able to say his morning prayers. And he's thinking, what else can I give? I'd like to give a lot of money to charity, but I have very little. And he's racking his brains. What can he do to do that beyond? And suddenly he hears his cow moo, and it comes to him. It would be possible to exist without the cow. He would have to buy milk or give up milk and cheese. He could do that, but it would be very difficult. And then he says, well, I want God to do something that's difficult according to the court of heaven. And he wrestles with this. And he comes to the conclusion. He says, "Dear God, if you will make me recover and give me back my strength, I promise you, I will sell the cow and give that money to charity." And he went to bed relieved. The next morning, he dreaded opening his eyes because he was scared that he would experience the fatigue, but he felt fine. He jumps out of bed and does his daily routine, spends an entire day working in the fields, feels fine, just like the good old days. And he's thinking, could it be that God actually heard my prayer? And he decides to give it another day and a third day and a fourth day. When most of the week passes and he's back to normal, he realizes a miracle. God gave him back strength. But then suddenly he became very anxious. Uh-oh, if God kept his word, then I have to keep my word. The bargain that I made with God was, I'll go beyond my limitations, and the Almighty God should go beyond the limitations of judgment, of law. And he's thinking, give up my cow? That's giving up a lot of pleasure. In fact, that's giving up a lot of necessities. I got so used to my milk. And he's thinking, how can he get out of this promise? And he doesn't want to play games. After all, he realizes that if he might not keep his promise, God might not decide to keep on giving him this supernatural strength. And he thinks of a very, very clever ruse. The next day, he walks through the marketplace with the cow and a rooster. And he opens up a stall, and it says, "Cow for sale." Immediately, it was a good-looking cow, healthy, gave a lot of milk, And a fellow comes over and says, I'm interested in that cow. How much is it? And he looks at the person and he says, actually, it's a bargain. It will only cost you 3 zloty or something like that. He looks at Shlomo. Are you crazy? A healthy cow? You're selling for the equivalent of 75 cents? He says, no, I'm absolutely doing that. He says, well, look, here's a ruble. Keep the change. He says, oh, no. It's a package deal. I'm selling the cow and the rooster. Okay, how much is the rooster? 275 rubles. So are you nuts? A rooster doesn't cost more than a ruble. It costs probably a half a ruble. He said, well, it's either or. You want the cow, you got to buy the rooster. If you don't want the cow, you don't have to buy the rooster. He walks away. He comes back in a couple of minutes. He says to himself, actually, 275 rubles for a cow is a fair price. So he's getting the cow plus a rooster. He says, you know what? Fine. I'll buy it. So he says, okay, 3 zloty for the cow, 275 rubles for the rooster. He goes home relieved. Friday morning, he goes to the synagogue and he says, dear God, I told you I would give you the value of the cow. Here's the 3 zlota. And of course, with the 275 rubles, he bought himself a new cow. Now, this is a charming story, at least in my opinion, because he got the miracle and he kept the cow. But there's always a but or however. This was an opportunity for him to shine. This was an opportunity, perhaps, that God was giving him. God wanted to see how far would he go to bring a salvation. And perhaps, only perhaps, if he would have given the 275 to charity, who knows? He might have then found a treasure, which would have been even greater. Because God would have said, Shlomo, I've seen your sacrifice, and I've seen how difficult it was for you, and you rose to that occasion. Well, you know something? I will throw in not only good health, but also riches. So instead, he got his cow, and he retained his health, and I hope they both lived happily ever after. But what about us? I want to ask you a question. Can you try that with your boss? Imagine, weekend is coming, and you really desperately want to leave, not 5 o'clock, but really 11 o'clock. You want to beat the traffic. You want to be the first one at the resort. So you go to your boss. You say, Frank, do me a favor. Please, I'm a loyal worker. Let me go early. He says, I can't. First of all, you got a full day's work ahead of you. Second of all is, you're not the only one that's been asking me. The whole office is asking me. And he says, boss, I swear to you, I'll make it up. I'll make it up. I'll come here before anyone. He says, okay, fine. And the guy goes out, has a wonderful weekend, and starts showing up. 5 minutes to 9, he clocks in. And after a month, boss calls him in and he says, my friend, what about keeping your side of the bargain? He says, I am. Haven't you been looking at the time clocks? I have to be here at 9, and I've been clocking in at 5 to 9. Well, I don't know what the conclusion would be. Perhaps according to the letter of the law, the worker has fulfilled. He gave more. He made it up, or at least in his mind he made it up. But do you think the boss will ever allow him to pull that stunt again? I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't. Which leads me to something topical. You know, Jewish people have holidays. We have Passover, celebrates freedom. We have Shavuot, which we celebrate and mark the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. We have Sukkot, celebrates the festival of ingathering. We remark about God's providence, how he watches over us. And here a holiday comes. And God says, look, I'm going to give you a holiday. And I'm going to give you an open check account. You could become as Jewish as you want during this holiday. You could observe as much, you could grow, you could do wonderful things with this 24, 48, 7-day holiday. You could actually change yourself from the ordinary to the extraordinary. So here we are. We look forward to the holiday. And on Passover, we have another dumpling. And on Shavuot, we have a little cheesecake. And maybe on Sukkot, I don't know, we sit outside and a little bit longer in the Sukkah. And then the holiday passes, and God says, "No, did you use my holiday?" And you say, "Yeah, technically I did." And technically you did. There's no doubt about it that you did. But there was so much more that you could have accomplished. And it's actually those days, those holidays, the time which is a rendezvous between us and God, where all the doors are open, where we can actually grow in a fantastic way, in a momentous way, almost a leap from whatever level of Jewish pride and observance we're in to a much, much higher level. So my friends, there is a great holiday coming up. It's Shavuot. We're going to be celebrating that God gave us the Torah. We're going to be remembering Mount Sinai. We're going to thank God for giving us His wisdom. Let's not be satisfied with that extra piece of cheesecake. That's good. A dairy kiddush is wonderful, but there's really so much more. I wish us all a wonderful day and a wonderful holiday, and may we recognize and realize our potential.